Well, hi. You may have noticed I've been gone for quite a while, and don't be mistaken, I've not spent that time well at all. I've been spending my time in my hyperbolic time chamber, training every single day to improve my skills and online searching abilities. Let's just say I went from a CI2 to a CI4 in that time period. With the combination of 20 different cans on my desk, we can see we've been doing WGAT plays, like the Zoomers like to say. I would like to thank my many subs for sticking through me for my very responsive and quality upload schedule. During this time, I fell in love with a new RTS game, a game which took another partition of my brain. And if it's a game I like, well, I gotta shill it. So I came back down from my hiatus tower to talk about this autistic game. Because, in all honesty, this might be one of the more unique and interesting games in the RTS genre that I've played. And with me going down the rabbit hole about the developers and this game, I came across things that I should not have learned of. Things that, in all honesty, I can't get into right now. Mostly because if I start the video with that thing, I doubt it'll keep you engaged. And you see, I really have to keep you engaged. As a NEET who's never worked a proper job before, being a little bit of an internet micro-celebrity might be my only way at living a normal life. Let's stop rambling and actually talk about the game. 0K is where you can get star-powered lasers to melt away your opposition, create nuclear warheads, which, if your friend was unfortunate enough not to build a anti-genocide device, will be given a accompanying game over screen. Games can turn into LARP simulators where you band together your construction bots to create massive walls to defend yourself from mountain-sized mechs that fire tactical nukes out of their arms. Literal sand, which allows the manipulation of gravity to rain asteroids onto your opponents. The addition of over 100 different and unique units with their own abilities. I can promise you there will be a playstyle for basically anyone. You can even use gravity units that, well, use gravity to launch your units across the map. Now my Waishichu. Come here and listen close. We're talking about late game 0K, but you don't know the basics. And the combination of this game having its incredible 2018 graphics, you may be turned off by it. I mean seriously, looking at the textures the game uses for grass, you would think this game would have came out in the early 2000s. But with the engine being capable of holding up to 32 max players on one server, and when the default max limit of units is 10,000 for each player, you're going to be glad that the textures look worse than modern day Roblox games. Now, if you really don't want to see your ass get kicked in this game, you must follow the beauty of this game. You're going to have to listen real close. You see, when you get into match, you're going to be given a choice on which commander you want to play with. Now, in the normal game mode, your commander dying does not mean the end of the game, which goes against most conventions about a commander in a game, but bear with me. But this is where your commander gets very interesting, because it heavily impacts the decisions you make on the map. And once you decide on a commander, you're able to add and upgrade abilities on said commander, which each commander gets their own trees of upgrades. And some upgrades can even get bonuses depending on which commander you pick. The Guardian. Guardian sacrifices almost all of its mobility to be a powerhouse on the field. You're given the widest variety of weapons compared to other commanders, from rocket launchers, disintegrators, and of course, tactical nukes. You're also given the ability to dual-wield weapons. Combining the fact that every armor and health upgrade being 25% more efficient on you, it makes you very hard to kill. And being like a 16-year-old girl on Discord, you are constantly followed by orbits of tiny little drones that try to defend you as much as they possibly can. The Recon. The opposite of the Guardian. Recon has the highest base speed, as well as the most speed upgrade slots in the game. And with great speed comes, well, the genetic breakthrough of having very high jumps. With the Recon's mobility, it makes it a very fast-paced commander, leaping from mountain to mountain to spread across the map, just to say, spread across America. The Engineer is what we like to call the more economic type of player. You see, the Engineer follows the footsteps of our very real-life history, using its higher build range and speed to create its own sort of holy land on the map, sacrificing speed and health for the long game of money that many in this world have lost to. Oh. Shit. The Strike. Following 0K's attention to real-life lore, the Strike is not afflicted with the weight of the Guardian, the speed or genetics of the Recon, nor the economic greed of the engineer. You can almost say it's a more superior version of the 3, put in God's image. Also having the ability to dual-wield weapons and not giving much up on speed or health, and a superior genetics allowing it to unlock infinite youth through leveling up, really pulls the pieces of the puzzle together, and you can see what the devs are trying to say with these commanders, and I overwhelmingly support this message. What? I'm an honorary Aryan, come on. Now let's get back to the real gameplay. Once you pick your commander, you will be given a random spot on the map to essentially drop on. When the game starts, your first factory you build will be built instantly, as well as it not costing any resources. Speaking about factories, there are a total of 12 factories that you can choose from. Now, you're not limited to one in the game, and you can very well just build every single factory. Not only that, you can build multiple of the same factory to really become the real-life equivalent to a Zerg. Cloakbot. This unit gives up on most of its damage to make up for its mobility and stealth. Like the name entails, every unit from this category will be invisible on all scanners. Also having access to AoE cloaking bots, allowing entire armies to go unnoticed on the map, giving them the ability to sneak up on even the most prepared players. Shield bots. Shield bots, like the name implies, shield themselves and your army. Being a fairly mobile unit, due to some of these units having the ability to jump over most terrain, allows them to dish out the pain without the need of backing out. An overall well-rounded unit type.
Leave me alone!
Rovers. Being much akin to real-life tanks, rovers are very aggressive units, dealing some of the highest damage in the game, while lacking speed. The sheer number of impalers you can build to bombard your enemies from the other side of a river makes up for more than its lackluster speed. Hovercrafts. Hovercraft units are a bit wider and larger than most of the units in the game, being much more susceptible to dirtbags and good use of terraforming, but for that added chonkiness, the hovercraft units can quite literally hover over seas and plains, making them incredible units on water-based maps where a navy cannot reach. Designed for close air support, you can really cosplay as a developed nation, training your weaker men and women to pilot machines of mass destruction, destroying any nation that dares to try and win a fair fight on land. Airplane units. Airplane units are a bit more unique in this game, not really having a strong fighter role, and makes up for it with its immense utility. Units that are incredible at taking out flying fortresses and bombing key targets, even giving players the ability to reenact one of their favorite scenes in Japanese media. Spider units. Spiders have the best mobility on rough terrain. Never, and I really mean never, fight a spider army on rough terrain. Your fat units will get stuck on every single crevice, allowing the spider players to absolutely devour you. Now, spiders don't deal great damage compared to most of the units in the game, yet the combination of great mid-range combat and superior mobility in tough areas makes them my personal favorite. I mean, I don't even have to deal with them having to walk around the entire map. I just click A and tell them to attack down a line. And with this, I get to watch my units slowly crawl across the entire map, while everyone else is trying to build ramps to get down from their mountains. Truly a 0k 10 out of 10. Jump bot units. Now you think that some of the shield bots being able to jump were cool, but now we have a whole race you could say that's dedicated to it. Jump bots are a very esoteric unit. I mean, I'm literally quoting this directly from the wiki. Nothing really compares to jumping over a 300-foot wall to instantly rush your opponents. Tank units. Now, these are just straight up tanks. No other factory is just dedicated to straight raw artillery. Try to push someone when they have dedicated their entire army to very high HP units that can range shells from you from miles away. Ampbots. They build very slow compared to other factories, but create very good all-around units. And like the name suggests, these guys are incredible at moving across large oceans. Some of these units even have the ability to regenerate their HP inside of water, allowing them to win most battles of attrition, and with their small size, are very good at overwhelming ships in the water. Ship units. Now listen, if you're ever in a map with water, create a fucking shipyard. The shipyard is a pretty large factory that has to be put pretty deep underwater, but once there, creates incredibly strong units, even allowing the player to create subs, which basically take out any unit that dares walk into the water. Build an army of sirens and watch them absolutely obliterate every landlubber on the server. Now, heed my warning, whatever you do not make the Strider hub like I did once. You see, we can't exactly afford the prices of some of these units. Combining these poor reading comprehension and financial skills will make us essentially lose the game. So listen closely, white boy. Start small with your empire and build a simple factory. Do not be a greedy foreigner and focus on what matters most. Metal. We have two resources in this game that we have to balance: energy and metal. Now energy is easy. You can get up on a high hill or even create your own with construction bots and make your own wind farm. Use solar generation, fusion, and black hole reactors. And if you're lucky enough to spawn near a geovent, you can harvest some of that Earth's sweet hot steam to power yourself, combining the use of power pylons to drag your power across the entirety of the map. Power will simply feel endless. Fairly simple enough, right? Energy is like the chastity cage. It allows you to provide energy to powerful caretakers that can aid in the creation of units and the ability to repair holes in your base. Power radars create area jammers to hide your location from said radars, giving access to energy required to maintain an Aegis defense unit, which allows the protection from missiles and projectiles, even going as far to overclock metal extractors to create more, well, metal. But you see, the energy around you is the cage of the chastity. It protects you. And when you're feeling like a bad boy thinking he can touch himself, the energy keeps your base rigid and protected. But what if you want to leave that cage and push into the enemy's cages? Well, you're going to need metal for that. A key, you could say. And a lot of keys you're going to need. The real struggle of this game is maintaining a good metal supply. You see, there are a limited number of metal extractor locations on the map. These will be the most consistent way of obtaining metal. 0K allows you to dig up trees and natural resources for metal, but when those all run dry, the only other way is either recycling the remains of units on the battlefield, or these stupid fucking metal extractors. And like I said before about power pylons, you're going to want to make a grid of these as soon as possible. 0K lets you make as much energy as you want, and you'll use that energy to overdrive your metal extractors to drip feed yourself and your army. So try to slowly move onto your teammate's side like a silent cancer cell, forming in a small and feminine prostate that's been shrunk from HRT, where we will multiply our means of production, which will take up more and more of his side of extractor locations without him noticing. Because you see, this guy doesn't own a hard copy of StarCraft 2. He doesn't have hundreds of hours on Dota. He is useless to you. And as a high value player, we must treat these extractors like our wives and spread our seeds across the map. But to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure if my friends were even aware of these mechanics. Looking back in the recordings, I was getting around 500 metal a second. Because, well, we play with multipliers. Because I'm not going to spend an hour playing an RTS match. And in these recordings, they were sitting in their mud huts still trying to figure out what control binds are in the middle of their poorly defended bases being bombarded by my units. As the extremely toxic and competitive friend in my group, we like to try a technique that empaths like me do, not telling my friends mechanics in the game to further fuel my superiority complex. Now, let's get onto the gameplay. That's what I wanted to say before I decided to take a 10 terabyte hard drive onto the plane, causing all the footage I had for gameplay to be shattered away in the pieces of said hard drive. Who would have known that constant vibration in a backpack and having to run to your gate would cause some sort of memory issue with my drive? You may be asking what this all means. It means that 14 minutes of just video now just doesn't exist. An entire part of my masterfully crafted script of me bullying my friends for minutes are now just gone. But hey, it's okay. I decided to employ new tard wranglers into my life, which I then decided to constantly harass into playing my autism games. Now, I would try to give you commentary on some of these clips, but honestly, what is there to talk about? Every game was just a stomp. I don't think I can recall a single game where I actually lost. Why don't you queue for normal games, you may ask? Well, I would actually have to learn how to play the game. And players who don't know how to produce units in a timely manner felt like I was some tech trainee Korean microcoder god. So I can show you the next interesting thing. Me against the world. And just like the rest of my Dota games being a 1v9, we will be playing solo against my friends. Mostly because it's the only way for the games to be more fair. Trust me, doing free-for-all matches does not exactly stack the odds in their favor. So let's move on to some gameplay. Actually, this time, we find ourselves in a developing continent where we'll spawn into a very rich and developed area of said continent. We put down an Ampbot factory and get onto our basics, expand to nearby metal, and get an energy grid going. Since we have an entire side of the map to ourselves, we will abuse every single metal extractor we can here. Picking Recon allows us to very quickly use our northern landmass in the way that it's used in real life, a very volatile and irradiated place. This will be our energy hub in the game, giving us the abilities to get radars down where we can see the wonderful things that my enemies are doing, allowing us to plan accordingly with our army. Being on such a water-dominated map, we're going to build up a navy as soon as possible. The two teams we have consist of 2 women, and 2 men. Basically, we're going to be paying a bit more attention on the top side of the map this game, making us take a few more micro decisions in this area, creating a small outpost to hold up and create metal end near them. Since one of these Cretans loves spamming nukes, we're going to get an early anti-nuke down on our base and expand more of our power grid with tidal generators to get more of a equal spread throughout the map, to not be too focused in one area. With our very aggressive controlling of the map and massive financial lead, we can see that our opponents are literally doing nothing, instead of opting to figure out how the game works. While focusing on my energy, I'm really awakened to see that this retard keeps bombing the same outpost over and over again. Not with cheap missiles either, full-on nukes. This happened a little bit too many times during this recording, making me have to rebuild a little too many times in that area. Why not build an anti-nuke? I honestly did not expect him to repeatedly bomb the same place over and over again. You would think he would assume I would not have put too many eggs in that basket, but clearly Tar's psychic readings of my character goes a long way. During these bombings, we have set up a small outpost near the other team, setting up caretakers at this outpost to help in the production of napalm. We start to apply pressure to them. By pressure, I mean bombing the absolute shit out of them constantly. I want to make sure that these people never get to leave their base. By what method? By leaving their entire base covered in flames, forcing every single one of their construction bot wages to help with the fires. As we look to the top, I decide to probe a bit, use my gigantic navy for something. We send in a large amount of naval power, which gets nuked. I honestly don't know what to say to this. Looking back at the recordings, this animal got very close to bombing himself with these nukes, but it actually works. He just bombed a river. Full on just used a nuke on a body of water right next to his base, making half of my army just leave this plane of existence, which may have sucked if I were them. But I'm not them. These cavemen are not exactly getting close to the amount of metal that I was producing this game. I had so much money that I didn't really know what to do with it, because we employ something called debt maxing. Even if we're in the loss of materials, 0K will actually split those materials around every project, meaning that we can build many units at a slower rate instead of one unit at a constant rate. We need a spread of units for every front that we're currently fighting. Focusing on making one factory produce units quickly does not give me map control, which we need when we have to fight potentially 4 people at the same time. I want to pretend there's something more interesting that happens here, but not really. I just make a huge box and attack move all my units down the line. My constant bombardings and pressure made my opponents live in poverty. Adding on the fact that I had a charged up senate and constructed detriments meant there was nothing really left for them to defend, and that's it. I can show you other games where I go 1v3, but it means nothing. I just win every game. I honestly can't even begin to speak about how strange the feeling is. I stand atop my wins, and I declare myself the best out of all my friends. Kings of kings, you could say. But I sit alone in this empty game. I look upon the hours I put into my works, ye mighty, and despair. But the lone and level sands stretch far and far away. Was this video worth for my 30 subs? I assume it was better than doing nothing all day. But I wonder what I could have done with that time if I had it back. Well, I guess that's the end of this video. Oh. That thing? You may have noticed that some of the older clips that I seem to have 4,000 millisecond ping. Very eyebrow raising, you could say. Even in solo games with just AI, I still have 4K ping and map. I'm not sure if this is some form of internet-based Bitcoin miner. Looking into the forum posts, there seems to be others that face the same issue. And the main dev seems to ignore it every time. Oh, well, actually, wait a minute. He just says to run a benchmark and... Oh, I don't know why a benchmark for this game takes multiple hours, but does it even matter? Getting a new computer seemed to fix it. All that time in that script just gone. Learning about buffer bloat and figuring out what's going on with my router. Even have to run router tests to see if there's anything wrong with my computer. It being an open source game and going through multiple Lua files, digging through forum posts of seeing the developer actively ignore every message about this issue. Footage just gone. An entire joke just washed away. Nothing beside remains. All but round decay.